Well, anyways, on this episode of the NerdBrand Podcast, things you can do in the woods
with sticks.
We're happy to have Jonathan back. He did not get fired from the show. He was sick.
The old Ohio Valley crud.
Yeah,
the boy who lived.
Yeah, which I'm kind of dealing with that right now. Yeah, the boy who lived. I woke up this morning and I took a Benadryl and I was like, man, I hope it kicks in soon. And then I got into the parking lot and I felt it when I walked across the parking lot. I was like, oh, there it is.
It's like you're walking, all of a sudden everything starts moving at 1/3 speed.
Yeah. Just like a Zack Snyder film. Just
Jason didn't get my Harry Potter reference.
No, I didn't.
I did.
You didn't. I know you did.
I was going to say, we should have...
It took a second, I saw your eyes light up.
Now I want to paint a little lightning bolt on your forehead.
Please don't. I'm okay.
Anyways, the sass is back, as we were told that John brings a certain... Michaela and I were at an event, and we're like, yeah, John brings
Who said it?
You know what? I call him out all the time, but...
I know who said it. I know who you are.
We're also here with Michaela again. So, Michaela, we're so happy to have you back with us. Got a message this morning like, hey, can I join you guys? It's like, can I come out and play? Yeah, you can come out and play. And then we have Mitch, who's very happy because he has a new toy. We got him a new Pantone doohickey.
I have good new colors.
Yes. So, everybody's in a good mood. It's Friday, everybody. I heard something that... I shared it with you, Michaela, when we went to the event the other day, was that if this is kind of like a sales tip type thing, that Howard Stern, he'll end his interviews, I don't know if he still does this or not, but he'll say, well, we've talked about everything, there's nothing left to discuss, and then kind of another 30 minutes goes on in the interview.
Right.
And then that's where all the meat of that interview comes out on his show. And I was told that when you go and you're in a sales meeting, you kind of get done, try that. And if they walk you to your car, that's when the sale happens, when you're on your way to the car. Because now they're going to tell you what they really need, what's really going on. So I just thought that was a cool little thing to kind of be aware of. Because in sales, there's a lot of that coming up lately, which I know that's not what the show's about. We were talking about this is our third installment of Business Networking. But in a way, it kind of, I guess it does relate because you got to be very socially aware of what's going on in every conversation you have. And typically people that go to business networking are salespeople. And they go back to marketing people and they're like, well, they want to measure the success of that, how that went. You can't measure trust or caring. You can only try to foster that. So a lot of times in sales, that's all you're doing. So in business networking, you're creating that environment by getting to know them, not doing a hard sell. Mm-hmm. Now, that wasn't intended to be a recap of the first 2 episodes, if you're tuning in, but that's pretty much the drive towards this, to make friends, not make a sale. Those connections will lead to someplace. So, but this episode's about being careful about who you network with, so who you're trying to talk to. This is where you discover your business network referrals, not your clientele. So most of your referrals will be these. The point is stop selling, asking, and start focusing on them, the audience and other members, and you'll see things change for you. John, you weren't with us the last time, so I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on this whole thing. Yeah, hello.
On business networking in general?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. You do it all.
It's a thing.
You do it all. I sit behind a computer and I just toil away and do the things.
Well, from your perspective, though, I mean, even online, like through email, people will do it. There's your way of communicating through email is very different. I can tell when you've had a day because you'll start your email with like, it's being handled.
I just feel like that puts you at ease, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it makes you, I mean, for me, it's just like anything else. It's just like marketing. You're just trying to build relationships with people and not trying to manipulate them. You're trying to find the people that you genuinely connect with, and then from that, who knows what will happen? They either know people or they do need something. It might be a year from now that you've had your first conversation. So, I don't have any like philosophical thoughts on it. It's literally just being kind of like a normal person. Well, and trying to figure out what they need, figure out how you can help them, and genuinely form some kind of mutual arrangement.
I mean, you hit on it. It's about being genuine. It's about people tend to remember you in those situations if if you're mindful. I mean, mindfulness is kind of a big thing right now. But the fact that if you seem to care more about what they have to say to you than what you need to say to them, they're going to remember you and they're going to think better of you. You become a resource. If you are able to help them by listening, if you're able to help them in some way, even if it's just if you can't do something for them yourself, but hey, I know somebody that might be able to help you with that. Let me give you a number. People remember those who are an asset or are a resource.
That's the networking aspect of it, and I think that's what you do a ton. Is just look for two people who can benefit from each other, and there's immense value in being that person in the middle. Way more than being the person who can sell to any individual. There's a ton more value in being able to connect two companies, two individuals who have something to gain from each other. They're going to remember you, like you said. They're going to remember who referred them, probably more than the person that they're actually selling to.
Yep.
Ultimately.
Yeah. And it does pay off, and it's a very long game. This is not a technique that, I don't know, leads to a close in 30, 60 days. I mean, when networking, salespeople are in there, and it's either the CMO or the CRO or something like that they're coordinating with, and they're trying to figure out, like, okay, did you meet a number? How many people did you talk to? How many contacts? I met with somebody the other day, and they were like, I have to do so many cold calls in a week, and I just immediately put my hands in a prayer clasp, and I was like, let me pray for you right now, because wow, cold calling is terrible.
It's
beyond a quota would be.
Yeah. So you're just kind of focusing on hitting the quota of how many calls you've made, how many contacts, which I do try to make a couple contacts per day, doesn't always work though when you're sick sometimes. So you have to, then you're like, oh crap, now I got 4 that I got to make today for yesterday. At some point, it's for the inspiration of the show. It's like, but do I need to make a contact for the sake of a contact? Do I need to, because when I go to a networking event, I don't necessarily like
try to talk to every single person.
Yeah,
silly.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, whether it's networking or lead generation, we're talking about cold calling. It's all still a numbers game to some degree, even if you're networking for the purpose of making contacts, and because networking at its best is organic word of mouth building. Okay, but it's still a little bit of a numbers game. You still have to be willing to reach out and talk to people and be comfortable introducing yourself and introducing who you are and what you do. And you also have to kind of learn how to ask leading questions. Not just, hey, I'm Mitch, I'm with NerdBrand, I'm the creative director. Okay, you haven't really given them any other reason to interact with you beyond that. You need to ask questions, probing questions, all things I did sales for a while. It's sales 101. Probing questions to find out what people are really about beyond what they do and what the services are. What needs do you have? What are their pain points?
Yeah, it's discovery.
Yep.
Yeah, Michaela, in your time in working in the lands of nonprofits and everything, what are some of do you have any? And I'm just putting you on the spot. Do you have any?
I don't mind.
People that have approached you with questions that you found like, oh, that was interesting, and it kind of landed and stuck. Because I have one that this guy across the table from me did, something that he said to me years ago. Now John's like, what did I do? What did I do?
Well, why you been keeping it a secret?
Yeah, it's a good thing. But continue.
It's kind of like what we mentioned last time. Like, you shouldn't really compare the company that you work for if you're talking to somebody and you're explaining what your business is, and they compare it to something else. You should try to avoid to do that. Someone at a networking event did that, and I'm like, no, that is not what it does. That is not what that's the basis of the organization. So it kind of led to a little bit of embarrassment on both parties and confusion, and we were just like, here's cards, and see what happens, kind of thing. But that generally you just misconstrue a lot. I feel like there's just not a whole lot of active listening.
Thank you for saying that, because there's a big difference between listening and active listening. Can you define that?
It's not only just listening with your ears, but you're giving them eye contact, and you're giving nonverbals as well, and it's all about your body language. It's all the nonverbals combined with actually listening.
Yeah,
being able to repeat back what get to the meat of what they said and repeat it back to them, to me, is that too. That's the active part of it, is that you actually heard what they were feeling or whatever.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm back on, I feel like I'm in marital counseling or something,
Well, no, I mean, it's human interaction 101. People remember you if you, I mean, if in some way you reflect back to them what has been said, it shows them, oh, you're paying attention to me. Because let's face it, most of the time people don't anymore.
I was communicated to in my earphones. Sorry. It was very jarring because none of you can hear what I heard. And it's very interesting. They've leveled up the technology here at the podcast studio.
That's not fair. You get special messages.
Oh, no, you all will too. Don't worry. He's got it geared for that. Robert's a wizard. Anyhow, yeah, you're right. I mean, the other thing I was thinking about when you were saying that was mimicking their body language is also a good thing to do if you're in a meeting, because if you're kind of like mirroring them in a way, puts them at ease more. So don't cross your arms. I know people think that
unless they do.
Yeah, unless they do. But
this looks really casual. No, it means you're putting up a wall.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, people take it as like this is putting up a wall when you cross your arms, but it's actually more self-comfort. And it is for me anyways. It feels comfortable because I'm like,
well, I mean, that's putting up a wall.
Yeah, it's a self-hug. Yeah, exactly.
You're making yourself more comfortable. You're putting up a wall because they've done something or said something, or their body language is making you uncomfortable.
Yeah. That's why it's always like difficult to do the job on Zoom. And I'm glad that everything's in person, because on Zoom you can't. John and I have been on calls where they didn't turn the camera on, and he and I are kind of like, are they okay?
Oh yeah.
With what we just said, we can't tell what the reaction is. Because usually people just kind of want to get down to the meat of how much does this cost. Well, the only way I can qualify that is if I tell them our threshold and then see if the eyeballs pop out of their skull. And if they don't, then we can keep talking.
Well, in our case too, when we're like revealing something or going through options for a name, for a brand name, it's hard to know what is actually landing with them if they're just on the phone.
Right. Right.
So I think we recently experienced that. And it's not the end of the world by any means. You can still get to the result and the solution, but it's just harder because you don't know. There's just a weird like facial cue that somebody's done talking. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's on the phone. You kind of have to, if you have 4 people on a Zoom or 3 or 5 or however many, nobody knows when to talk because they're not seeing that whatever that thing is in the eye that tells you somebody's done or has something else to say or whatever it may be. So
yeah. I think that's why Zoom does the one setting instead of the gallery. It has the individual that takes up the entire screen, so the person that's talking is on the screen, is to keep you engaged.
Less distracting.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, this person is talking. So there you go. But it took me a while to like realize that's what that option. And maybe that option isn't for that. Maybe somebody at Zoom, if they're listening to this thing, they're like, no, that's not why we did that, but thanks for that. We're going to put that on our stuff now as our part of our, hey, by the way, this is a really cool way to use it. One of the things that John said to me years ago that has stuck and always been my comfort in my job and what I do with regards to outreach and lead gen and all is that what you just said. It is a numbers game. It's just all it is. I mean, you want to talk though to the right people, and that's kind of the gist of this episode. Is like, yes, it's a numbers game, but you still got to talk to the right people.
Yeah, you want to optimize. You want to optimize the time you're having to spend by making sure that you're spending that time with the right audience.
Yeah. So I was in a meeting the other day, and they were like, who's the target who can I introduce you to specifically? Who is it that I can make a warm introduction to? And this person that was saying this to this other group was like, he's pretty proficient at this. So he's not just saying like, well, who do you like to sell to, or what's your target audience, or what's your demographic group? He was like, no, like literally, the town here. Who do you want to talk to and what organization? Is that detailed? And boy, they got them thinking. And I think they rattled off maybe 2 or 3 that they would love to have a conversation with, and he could probably warm intro them to them. That doesn't happen a lot. I usually get who's your preferred business?
Who's your ideal client?
Yeah, thank you.
Oh.
Yeah. There's like one that knows.
Don't know what that is yet.
Yeah.
Not really.
If you're in our business, you can be industry agnostic. You look like you're sitting on a button, Michaela. Like you're like, I got something to say.
No, It's all the caffeine, I promise.
Oh, yeah, it's just that everybody's got like intense looks today at me, and I'm like, I must look weird today. I'm like, I'm sorry.
It's all the allergy meds we're on, folks.
Yeah, it has to be. My goodness. And oh, by the way, everybody, happy Earth Day.
So is that today?
That is today. Yeah.
Nice.
Darn, I didn't buy anybody anything.
I only got 6 trees in my car.
Yeah, I
Get y'all some grass from us.
Yeah.
I'll think of something else for you.
Thanks. Yeah. What do I get? Well, it's Earth Day. What do I get the Earth?
You get a rock.
Yeah, you're right. Well, no, you got to give the Earth something. So what are you going to give the Earth? You know.
Have some compost.
Thank you, Mitch.
Have some carbon dioxide.
Start breathing on the grass.
Face down on your front lawn. Nobody will see any. Nobody will think
That's
anything.
one way to get the cops there. You know?
Yeah.
There's a man.
Face down in the grass.
Like, sir, we'd like for you to breathe into this thing for a little bit, and then we might want to test you for something else.
It's taking a turn.
This has taken a turn. Anyways, yeah. Who's your ideal client? I mean, our industry is pretty agnostic. It doesn't always have to stay that way, but for us, you know, somebody asked me that, that's the answer I give, because I don't want to try to like pigeonhole us into a certain, you know, corner with a certain group.
Certain industry or anything like that.
Thank you. Yeah. And for this show, I found on Reddit, there's a lot of opinions on Reddit with the small business thread, I think, for chambers of commerce. And is it worth it? Should you do it? Blah, blah, blah. The small business thread on Reddit sometimes is interesting. I don't use it as like a canon of anything or to kind of get a read in the room, because it's really not it. Because, you know, it'd be a 12-year-old in his mom's basement posted. But at the end of the day, it was like a series of questions. We're not going to really read through these out loud because Mitch is like, it's a little close to maybe calling somebody out. But I know that Robert in the booth, he's done that before with he's shaking his head like, already. So it's... mostly from when you read through this list, what I get from it is the sense of it seems to be like the first thing you should do if you start a business. You should just join a chamber and start meeting people, which sounds accurate, sounds right, but do y'all think that's actually what you should do?
Well, I mean, when we first started launching NerdBrand, you and I started going out to a lot of networking.
Sorry, I got to do that.
We didn't hit, I don't think we were hitting chambers of commerce, but we were hitting different networking groups for the sheer reason that it was a inexpensive way to create word of mouth about us. Just because you're in a crowd of people who are business people that are talking to other people, and it was a cheap way to get our name out there. So from that perspective, if you're a new business and you're
bootstrapping,
and you're looking for ways to get word of mouth out about you, I mean, maybe going to networking events and chambers of commerce. If not joining a chamber, maybe going to a chamber event. That way, you can at least get the temperature of the group, and if they fit, you'll know pretty quick. But it's like I said, it's an inexpensive or sometimes free way to say, hey, this is what I do. I'm launching a business, and I want to introduce myself.
Yeah, yeah. One of the questions I can read was, so what are some of the stereotypes of chambers? And on the list is like other confused people wondering why they did this.
There is that group.
Yeah, and then the other one is 5 or 6 people in the group eating together that give you the death stares if you try to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably more common in Louisville.
Yeah,
in towns like Louisville, just because it's kind of cliquey.
Well,
it always has been.
You always have with chambers or even with networking groups that meet on a regular basis. You always have that group that's always there. Yeah. They've been doing it for over a year, and it just becomes kind of a social event.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's been a couple chambers that I've talked to that like they want to project the message of we're fun, and I'm like, well, fun's fine.
Fun is okay.
Yeah, but after a while, I like to eat. That costs money.
Well, and as business people, our time is valuable, has value to it. Fun is fine. But there's also a mission involved. I'm here to accomplish something. Having fun is great, but it doesn't always accomplish an end goal, which is to help, recruit more business, more name recognition, meet contacts that might be able to help me when I have an issue down the road or I have a need.
Hiring,
right?
Labor.
Fun is about.
Speaking of Michaela.
Yeah, right. Fun should be about 10-15% of what it's about, in my book.
Yeah, I mean, Michaela was a result of networking. Wasn't the plan. It's kind of like me, like in the dark room, stumbling over a toy left on the floor. I was just like, "What the hell was that?" Oh, hey, how are you?
It was Michaela.
Hey, and she found out what we did, and she was like, "I might like to try that."
That's generally how it goes.
Yeah. Any of you, when you've been to networking events, have any of you kind of gone into a room and immediately kind of felt like, "Oh, this ain't my vibe"?
Most of the time, but that's just me.
I was going to say, for those that might come off, some of us who sometimes come off a little socially awkward, that's just any room we walk into sometimes.
I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, again, you go out 20 times more than anybody here, so
Yeah.
I know you've felt out pretty much every type of event, every chamber, and
I have.
there are definitely places where you've come back to me and been like, I'm not gonna go that again.
Yeah.
Or definitely we need to get more people there.
Yeah, there are some events that, and it comes down to our time, like a lot of people like to see us out and about. They like to see your all's faces, especially because, they probably see my face for a lot and they're like, "Oh, there's other nerds." Like, yep, they all exist. But it's one of those things where there's some groups and events that I would like to see really become more successful and more attendance, but then I'm sort of doing what we do for companies under a contract and retainer service.
Yeah.
I can't do that, for free. And it's not just about the money, it's time. Like
Right.
Mitch, you said, you can't make more time. You just can't. Working harder doesn't earn you a 25th hour in the day. It just doesn't. So that kind of comes down to that. So there's been a lot of things that I've personally have drawn away from and pulled back from and not attended or stopped doing because of that. Because there has been over the last 6 months, and maybe some folks in our audience listening will relate to this, a absolute flurry and frenzy of activity that hasn't really led to anything. Have y'all noticed that? I know, Michaela, before you came on, you were doing a lot of networking too yourself. Do you feel like there was anything that was like, well, this was a fun thing, but then just kind of 2 hours of your day was like gone?
Yeah. I was with another chamber in Louisville, and every time it was like the first Tuesday of every month, and it just was like 2.5 hours just thrown out the window of me. I could have done whatever for the nonprofit that I was working for, but it was addressed that I had to go, but it was just like a luncheon, and you just listened. And then if you wanted something to say at the end, you passed a mic around. But
yeah,
it just was very, it was very cliquey to that one. I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny with chambers. I mean, there's a lot of ingredients to go into whether or not a chamber can be a good fit for an individual business. But generally, is it a chamber that's large enough that has a variety of participants that create a broader, kind of a broader audience for you to be able to work within? If it's smaller chambers, I mean, this is all kind of common sense, but smaller chambers usually have fewer types of businesses, fewer different types of individuals, and it's a much more close set, and they tend to be more cliquey. Those are probably less worthwhile.
Yeah.
Participate with. You want one that's large enough, that has a broad enough audience, that the opportunities for contacts and for allies is just simply going to be increased because of the variety and the number.
Yeah, and the way you do that when you join a chamber, look at the member list. You have access to it as a member. Look at the list, look at the categories, look at who's in it. It takes a lot of time, and I do that when I'm at home on my computer. It's like going through a phone book. So yes, it sounds as sexy as that. But you have to, because I've gone through lists and I see in certain categories a ton of people in this one category in this certain members list in the organization we've joined. And I immediately know I can't service those. I can't help them. They're tied to a larger organization. They're tied to, they're just starting out, and so you start to get a really good grasp on, okay, not saying it's a bad chamber to join, because they can evolve. But, if you're not really looking at the list and you just kind of join the chamber and just show up to an event, hope you're going to get something out of it. Yeah,
because it's a chamber.
Yeah, you kind of started off on the wrong foot. So you kind of have to do that. You have to do the research. and look through that list. It's not, they don't hide these things from you. I just don't know if there's many people out there that actually do that. Maybe I'm just, John, you're more detail oriented than I am as a person.
I think it's hard to make yourself do, just because everybody's so busy. I mean, I know since we joined like 3 chambers at the same time, and I've had on my list since we joined to go through the member list. Now it kind of worked out where it's primarily your responsibility in the company right now, but still, for me, it's always a choice of like doing some of the work over here for clients, or go through this research, which may result in something. Probably would if you put in enough time, but can you get to that threshold where you've grasped the list and you have people that you're confident you can reach out to and all that? It just, like you said, it's an investment of hours and hours and hours of just kind of research.
Yeah, people always ask me, like, how do you guys get clients? Which, the standard answer I give is, it's referral based, and it is, but I don't really dive in more past that because I'm always shocked to get that question. I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm just kind of like, for me, I'm always trying to read like what's behind that. And that's immediately for me, it triggers like, okay, you've got a problem with acquisitions, cost of acquisition, something in your sales arena is not working, which immediately leads to the fact you're not marketing or advertising yourself. And that's why you're just not doing that. You have to do that. And it starts to show up in your revenue, but it takes a while. Like 3 months in, you're like looking at your P&L and you're going like, uh-oh, what happened? Well, you turned off this and didn't pay for this, or you're not doing this activity in marketing.
You stopped too soon. I think that's one thing. There have been many times, I think over the past 2 years, where it was very difficult to keep going, especially again for you, for being at the kind of the forefront of NerdBrand's networking and outreach and all of that. I mean, everybody's had a tough 2 years, 3 years. I think there's been plenty of opportunities for us to throw in the hat, especially on networking and hitting some walls with certain chambers and different groups. It's persistence, because there's stuff shaking out. I mean, you've been at it hardcore for a year, at least.
Yeah.
Just talking to anybody, everybody, figuring out what the connections are, what the web is in Louisville and beyond. And that's what you have to do. I think a lot of folks with chambers and networking groups, they'll sit there for, they'll come in for 2 months, 3 months, and if something doesn't shake out, it's like a dead end.
Yeah.
It's more of a 12-month.
It is.
Because people got to get to know you. Nobody's going to refer you business if they haven't worked with you and if they haven't been around you for more than a couple months. You're not going to get somebody to lay out their reputation for you.
Yeah, there's aside from going through chamber lists, because it could be a small chamber and you join and it's still a good member list. You have to go through like, who do they know? We've talked about that before. Like, don't just focus on that name and person or business. Who do they know? But there's several books out there, and I can't remember the title of the one that I've read, but it's basically learn systems, learn how to find the system, and learn that system. Like in churches, there's always a system. Churches are pastor-led, deacon-led, elder-led, staff-led, or that family in the front row of the pew on the left side, and you shall not sit there ever. And if you do, you will know. You'll get stares. There's systems that drive things in organizations, whether they're nonprofits or for-profit or churches or whatever it is. There's something there that sort of has set the status quo because, like you said, cliques, yeah, those exist and those are bad, but more or less there's a system that's in place. And when the system is revised or renewed, that's usually when you see growth. Because the old system is not going to think about new ideas because they're just going to think about like, well, this is what we've always done, right? So reading about systems and learning about that will help you navigate networking in chambers because you'll start to meet key players and you'll start to understand like who's influencing. That's really important. So anyways, any other things you guys have that you think that is valuable to, for joining a chamber?
Well, I mean, the one thing that comes to mind, and we could do a whole podcast on this, but new business acquisition is expensive from a time standpoint, and sometimes from a dollars and cents standpoint. So I think there's with any bit. I mean, especially us who are a service oriented business, they always say that most new business comes from existing clients. That's why I think, number one, you've got to have two kind of sides to your ledger. You've got to have one side, and it's hard, where you're maintaining those relationships with your existing clients, just not to bug them, not to make a nuisance of yourself, but let them know, hey, we're here, you need us. Always give them new reasons to think about you. And the other side is that the new business side. You're still kind of doing the same thing. Here's another reason. People you're around, like in chamber events and things like that, people that see you on a regular basis, you still need to be continually giving them new reasons to think about you and have you come to mind. Mm-hmm. So that same principle works for both sides of that ledger.
Yeah. I recently gave a presentation on the difference between branding and marketing. Yesterday I sent John a copy. I was like, here it is on Google Drive. I said, here's the presentation. And I just got a noise. I was like, I think that's what you did.
Well, I'm always in the middle of something. It's not that I don't appreciate it or whatever. It's just like I recognize what you've sent me, and I look at it real quick, and then I'm like, I got to stay focused over here.
Yeah. It was like 7 slides. Like, there's not like 7.
I thought it was good.
Yeah. I don't do like really long ones. Just like 5 or 7 slides. It kind of shocks people too, because I did that at another event and then gave a presentation.
It shocked me a little bit, and I was there.
Yeah, I quit talking, and they were like,
That's it?
"Oh, is that all?" It's like, well, there's like one big point that I was making, and I kind of made it. So
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. There's just all kinds of things that you can do if you join a chamber and their leads groups. There's opportunities to do those kinds of things, to present your business, to have a little bit more than that 30-second pitch.
Yep.
Is basically what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I think every organization should let the members highlight them for that particular event. And I think there's things they do and they don't do. They need to do better for that. And I've had a lot of ideas about that, but we always have to be careful not to give away too much for free. I do think about that, but
I know you've said something in the past too. Get out of the boardroom, and I think that's when you're starting a business, you have a tendency to very, very much overthink every decision, every little founding asset before you've gone out and actually talked to people. And I think that's one big value of a chamber, because you can't just go in a coffee shop and just be like, hey, everybody, I have this idea.
Yeah.
And you can't pay for market research and genuinely, go down that road. So I think chambers, among other kind of networking-ish, business networking groups, that's a great opportunity for a startup, for a new product idea, for a new business to go in and be surrounded by 50 people at a networking event and just talk about what you're doing and see what reactions you get. Because I know that's what you all did before I came into the picture. And I think it helped you all from the get-go really kind of hone in on okay, yeah, this is what we need to do. These are some of the ways we need to talk. This is some of what we need to say. There's actual interest here.
Yeah, it's like a laboratory. It helps you to formulate and fine-tune your message. Mm-hmm. Seeing what sticks, what resonates with people, what makes them stop and really start paying attention and interact with you. So that's a great example of a benefit.
It forces you to, because I know you're very, very smooth with how you present us and the things you say, because you do it 4 or 5 days a week to strangers or to people who are sort of acquainted but don't really know what we do. Mm-hmm. I know as I participate more in that, when I was doing the leads groups, it forced me to sit down and kind of write out a script and then memorize it and think about it so that you can pitch eloquently. And it makes a difference. You can tell people are more engaged if your pitch is a little more, has sharper edges, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, that's always been the challenge for me in a room, because I know that some of you have shadowed me, especially you, Michaela, when we went out. It's like, I don't really have I don't want to say this. There is a script, and it's actually on our website. It's on the philosophy page. But at the end of the day, when you start meeting somebody, like Michaela, you saw it, they walked up, what's NerdBrand? Yeah. And so you can't really just dive into that, because they're actually asking you, that's an interesting name. What is that? What do you do? Because it could be anything, and they know that, and you know that. So you kind of have an opportunity to share more or less the history of the name, how it got to be that, and how that happened. And then you might have an avenue to talk about what you do. It just kind of have to read the room. It's constantly learning how to read a room is what that does. Mitch, I think you saying that it's a laboratory is a perfect way of articulating that, because I do a lot of things that I know people why did he do that? And I'm like, because I like to poke the bear, and I'm trying to figure out what the reaction would be.
What moves people.
Yeah,
Right.
I went
Exactly.
I went to Startup Academy online years ago. I don't know if y'all know this or not, but I actually do know how to build a startup. And when you start looking at certain things and you start talking to people, that's where I got that phrase, like, get out of the boardroom, because the guy that was teaching in Startup Academy kept saying it so many freaking times. The guy that I was going through it with, it just annoyed the hell out of us, because we're like, okay, we got it. But then he was like, well, if you talk to 70 people, no, and you talk to 700. And we just both sat there and we were like, oh, 700 people. Do you know 700 people? It's like, I don't even know half 5 on Facebook, and it was just like, you just sort of like realize that that's what he's talking about. It takes time. It takes like a year or 2 years of doing what I've been doing to understand the audience, not from a perspective of who we want to sell to, but from a perspective of the market city we are in. I don't know if y'all know this or not, but Jefferson County's freaking big. So
It's pretty big. There's a lot of folks here.
yeah. Population 800,000-ish, Thunder rolls around here in a couple of weeks. That's going to be a lot more. So, yeah, even say something?
Tomorrow.
Oh, no,
Yeah, Thunder's tomorrow.
yep.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Well, there you go, everybody. This is what it's like when you're on Benadryl and do a podcast. Enjoy.
Not when you hear this, so don't go out.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
It's over.
Well, it's like when I said Happy Earth Day, and everybody's like, no, by the time you hear this, it's not. It's like pulling the curtain
You can
back.
still celebrate the earth, though.
Yeah, you
more
can
than once
celebrate
a
Earth
day.
Day any day, turn the lights off, sit in the dark if you want. I don't know, whatever you like to do, but that's not by your.
Go sit cross-legged in the grass and make bracelets out of flowers and things.
The good old days.
Yeah. Mitch just told everybody what his life was like in the 70s.
That's ageist.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? I was talking with Michaela with you the other day, and I was like, it was on Slack, and I was like, you were born in the wrong decade.
I was. I've been told that I'm an old soul because I went to McAllister's and ordered a bowl of soup and a tuna sandwich, and they're like, "What are you? A retirement home
grandma.
in Florida?" And I'm like,
Yeah, I would have looked at you and like, oh, she's ordering for her papaw.
I would like some dry toast and a cup of tea.
"See, that's what I would order that."
You also have a Janis Joplin shirt on, so that,
Yeah.
that puts you back in the day.
I was contemplating between this and my Led Zeppelin shirt.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, I'm still. I don't those types of bands I never got into to listen to. Mitch knows. He and I are pretty much Van Halen guys. Somebody was telling me the other day they started getting into the reactionary videos of watching the bands. They were younger people that were watching the reaction. It's like the first time they seen Eddie Van Halen, for example, play or Van Halen do a performance, and it's a rabbit hole of YouTube. So you're welcome, internet. Go do that after you listen to this show. Which, by the way, thank you for listening, and you can find on YouTube. You can just Google NerdBrand Podcast and find us there. You can go to nerdbrandagency.com/podcast, listen to this latest episode, or you can go to iTunes and Spotify and all the other whizzy bangs out there to listen to it on streaming if you want to on audio.
Whizzy bangs, that's a technical term.
Yep. Hey, like I said, Benadryl. So this is not this show's sponsor, but if they would like to be one day, I'm all about it.
We have a growing audience of people with allergies, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, for real. We are opening up the show to availability for sponsorships. If you'd like to have that discussion and what that would look like, we would love to. The guy at the end of the table here, who brings all the sass to the show. I'm not going to let go of that because that was so freaking funny for Josh to say that.
I feel like two people. Oh, you revealed it.
Yeah, that's who it is.
It's Josh.
So, yeah. But, you can contact Jonathan through that, and he'll be able to hook you up, and we can talk about what the sponsorship will look like on our show. We'll thank everybody for listening, and out there, remember, keep your nerd brand strong.